All right, guys. Here I have pulled up for lesson one a reading passage, and I am going to read this to you because it's got some good information on here before we get started into the actual lesson. Pioneers and the frontier, traveling the unknown. People have long been curious about exploring unknown and uncharted lands. From the time that colonists arrived in North America, there has always been people who were willing to pack up their lives and travel to explore new lands. In the late 1700s through the 1800s, men and women began traveling west across the Appalachian Mountains. These are the Appalachian Mountains here. These early travelers were called pioneers. As time went on, these pioneers kept pushing the edge of their settlement further and further west. This edge of settlement became known as the frontier. The Wilderness Road. Daniel Boone was probably the best known pioneer during this time. He led many pioneers west across the Appalachian Mountains. He created a trail that became known as the Wilderness Road. This trail cut through a gap in the mountains in Virginia to Kentucky. Soon, thousands of pioneers were traveling along the Wilderness Road. These early pioneers were leaving their lives behind in hopes of creating a new life in the West. Starting a new life. Pioneer life was hard. Everything had to be done by hand, including building homes, making their own clothes, and hunting for food. There were no close by neighbors to rely on or towns to visit when supplies were running low. Yet, pioneers pressed on and overcame these hardships. They continued to press on westward and built farms, roads, and towns along the way. Westward expansion. As word continued to spread about new fertile land and new opportunities in the West, others followed. Beginning with the early journeys of Daniel Boone on the Wilderness Road in the late 1700s to the late 1800s, became known as the time of westward expansion in the United States. Many risks were taken and sacrifices were made by these early travelers to create the United States as we know today. All right, and I have one more passage, and this is about the Louisiana Purchase. And you need to know about this before we get into our lesson today as well. The Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson's Curiosity. In 1801, Thomas Jefferson had been elected as the third president of the United States. He had heard the amazing accounts of pioneers like Daniel Boone, who had traveled west and pushed the boundaries of the frontier. Jefferson himself had always been curious of the land in the West and was hopeful to learn more about who lived there and what the land was like. He also wondered if there would ever be a water route found that would lead across the country to the Pacific Ocean. All of these wonderings pushed Jefferson to increase the land owned by the United States. A deal with France. As pioneers continued to move west, they created settlements and trade routes along the Mississippi River. They used the river to ship products like crops and animals to a port in New Orleans. From there, the products could be sold and shipped to other cities and even Europe. By the end of the 1700s, Spain had claimed land west of the Mississippi River, known as the Louisiana Territory. In in the fall of 1802, Spain briefly closed the port of New Orleans to American trade. This stopped pioneers' products from leaving the port. Although Spain reopened the port a few months later, it concerned President Jefferson. He wanted to make sure that the port would always be open to American trade and was convinced that the U.S. should purchase the port. In 1803, France had taken control of the Louisiana Territory. So Jefferson sent an American named James Monroe to France to work out a deal. At first, the leader of France, Napoleon, did not want to sell the land. He wanted to settle the Louisiana Territory with French settlers. However, France was in need of a lot of money to fight a war of their own against Britain. Napoleon made an even bigger offer. He would not just sell the port to the United States, but the entire Louisiana Territory. The price tag? $15 million. Monroe agreed to the deal, and France and with France, and in 1803, the Louisiana Territory became part of the United States. Double in size. With the Louisiana Purchase, the size of the United States doubled in size. The U.S. expanded their borders all the way to the Rocky Mountains. President Jefferson had taken a large step toward his goal of expanding the nation in the West. Now he needed to explore this new land. All right, you can move on to the next video and begin watching the instructional video.